Welcome to Coach's Corner, everybody. I'm your host, Coach Tripp, along with Trent Patterson. That's right, man, from Syracuse, New York. Henniger went to play at Alabama. I know a long ways away from home, but we'll get all into that. Trent, thanks for being on the show today, buddy.
Oh, Coach Tripp, thank you for having me. So good to see you.
Man, you too. Gosh, man, I don't even know where to start, but I guess we better start at the beginning. Talk about growing up and your sister and your mom and dad. Houston Patterson's barbecue sauce is famous there at Syracuse. I think he won the wing ding contest so much that they barred him from the contest.
That is correct.
Talk about mom and dad growing up in Syracuse.
Absolutely. Well, my dad, Houston Patterson, mother is Carrie Patterson. Fortunately, I lost my dad back in 2022. Okay. But a phenomenal man, brilliant mind, entrepreneur, had a lot of things cooking, so to speak, along with his barbecue, well known for that. But yeah, he instilled a lot of great things in me. One, just determination and the will to compete. As you mentioned, he won that wing ding contest quite a few times, so and you're right, they did bar him from the competition.
Oh my gosh. So you go to Henniger. Did you play a lot of sports? I know you were heavy, and we'll talk about you being on The Big Loser, that TV show. We'll talk about that later, but have you always been heavy, and how did you transform your body? Because I know when I was at Liverpool a little bit before you, and Bill Pendock was the same way, a freshman, sophomore, and George O'Leary got him in the weight room and transformed him into a Division I and pro player. Talk about your transformation in high school.
Well, yeah, I come from a long line of large folks, so I just fit the bill. But I was always very athletic. I couldn't play organized football at a young age because I didn't meet the weight limit, but I was always active. I was always honing my skills. I studied martial arts. My dad taught me how to box at a very young age. So I was always good with my hands, always good with my feet, and I was very athletic, so I just worked and had goals of doing something a little bit bigger. And, got in my mind that I was going to, work to compete, to earn a scholarship and to be relevant in our area. Back during our time, there were a lot of big time athletes, so and we were all kind of jockeying for ink in the paper, back then. They did a really good job in just highlighting, the talent in our area. And I always wanted a little bit of that, so that encouraged me to work hard and to strive for something great.
Talk about your Henniger years at Henniger City School in Syracuse. I guess what was your last year? 86 was your last 86, year? 86?
Yeah.
Talk about your high school teammates and your coach and how you guys did, and then we'll get into the recruiting process.
Yeah, I give you a funny story. I'm a longtime Pittsburgh Steelers fan. And I grew up in the Salt Springs area, up close to the Lemoyne College. So technically I should have gone to Nottingham, but because Henniger wore the black and gold, after elementary, I went over to Eastwood, which was a feeder school, and to Henniger. So it gave me an opportunity to wear the black and gold. So that's how I actually ended up at Henniger because, and the football, the brand of football was good there too.
Right.
We had a lot of really good players. Richard Norman, Tony Huddleston, Ray Seals, Mark Seals. So we had a lot of talent. So I wanted to go and be a part of that too, along with being able to wear the black and gold. So,
well, after high school, I guess you were just short on the SATs. But you didn't let it derail your dreams. You
Right.
actually, if I'm not mistaken, I think Joe Riccardi said you went to Tennessee prep school.
Yes.
Talk about that journey, Trent.
Yeah, that was interesting because that year was the first year of Prop 48. And there was, I believe, seven of us, one, two, no, five of us from Alabama that got caught in that.
Wow.
So we were given the opportunity to either enroll and lose a year of eligibility or
Mhm.
go to TMI, Tennessee Military Institute in Sweetwater, Tennessee, and use that as an opportunity to pass the test.
Mhm.
So I went there. Robert Stewart went there. That's where we connected, and there were five other guys from other schools. There was two guys from NC State who
Mhm.
were football guys, Darren Napier, and then my cousin Keith Johnson and Randy Baldwin, who had signed with Georgia Tech but later transferred to Ole Miss. Jim Earl Thomas, who was an Ole Miss guy, and
Mhm.
then Reggie Barlow, who was a Georgia guy at the time, but he ended up transferring to the other school in Alabama. But we were all there and got a chance to continue to prepare for the exam,
Right.
along with getting an opportunity to play. We would play JV teams like Tennessee's JV. We went
Right.
over and played. I think
Bam,
it's
Bama, even Bama had a JV team then, I think, or I mean, because I played on the
right.
JV team my first year.
Yeah, so that gave us an opportunity to get a taste of the college life,
Right.
along with being able to continue to study for the test to pass it, and then get all of our academic or eligibility playing years.
Mhm.
So fortunately, with God blessings, we went ahead and both Robert and I passed the test and entered in the spring of '87.
Okay, this is where I want to pick it up because this is such an amazing story. Joe Riccardi, I want to go over Rico again because without Joe Riccardi, none of us would have the life that we have and we wouldn't be sitting here today. Joe
True.
Riccardi, who went to Bama in 1968, was a tough son of a gun. Coach Brian and Coach Donahue loved him, but he had a messed up knee really bad. I mean, one of the worst knees I've ever seen. So he couldn't ever, stay in the game forever. But he was a beast on the field. And Joe could tell you some stories. But he was advocating for all of us, and I want to say all of us because we had a line from Syracuse to Bama. Started with Joe, then it came me. He talked me into going there. And I
Mhm.
ended up finally, being the first to play and get a scholarship. Todd Richardson from Liverpool High School took my number 23 and played at Bama.
That's
And then you came in '87 to Bama. Willie Brown followed you. Without
that's
Joe
right.
without Joe Riccardi making a phone call late at night, Trent. I know he told you this story, but he called down to Bama and Jimmy Fuller, Coach Fuller,
Yes, Coach.
famous coach. He was there when I was there. He was the only coach left from Ray Perkins's staff on the Bill Curry's, and he was at the facility. There was no cell phones back then. He was at the facility late at night, the only coach there, and he picked up the phone, and they gave you an opportunity, man.
That's right.
Wow.
That's right.
Talk about fate. And then you go to Bama. I mean, I know how it is. I didn't even know where it was on the map, Trent. I got off the plane. I thought it was 8 miles from the sun, for crying out loud. It was hotter than hell that summer in
Oh my goodness.
1980. Oh, 1980, it was a blistery summer. So how did you adjust to the culture, number one,
Mhm.
the biases which were present back in
Yeah.
Bama in the 80s, and how did you adjust to the coaches, the teammates? Talk about that adventure.
Well, if I'm being honest, that was my number one spot. From a little guy, right? I was always a fan of Coach Bryant. I
Oh,
always wanted to play for the coach with the hat. That's how I identified
oh
him.
my gosh,
Yeah,
really?
yeah. And I was a fan of Coach Perkins when he was the head coach at the Giants. So that was another connection. I was a fan of Joe Namath when he played for the Jets growing up. I'm a real student of the game, so I understand the football history, NFL and college. So I was a fan of Broadway Joe when he played for the Jets, and then my mother's from Tuskegee. So I've always had a little bit of connection.
Tuskegee. Oh,
yes, my mother's from Tuskegee. Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, my dad's from Live Oak. Was from Live Oak.
You had family. Oh, so you had family down there.
Yes, absolutely. So going in, I knew it was going to be amazingly hot, and I knew it was going to be tough. But it was all the things that I thought it would be. So I mean, obviously the heat affected me. I was one of 7 guys that would have that IV table set up for us after the summer camps. That was one of the 7. But after a while, I got acclimated to it. And I wasn't going to let the heat beat me. Right. So as you get down there and you get acclimated, and you understand, how to do your work in it,
right.
That you don't fear it. There's things that you can do from the standpoint of hydration and nutrition,
right.
So we got a chance to understand that. So I began to adjust and adapt to it. So.
Yeah, I did too. I remember to this day, the heat doesn't bother me. If I go out and work out, or I go out and, do some work around the yard or go for a bike ride or something, man, the heat doesn't bother me. It's just hot air. That's all.
That's it.
But man, there wasn't much, back then there just weren't many guys from Syracuse. Or even anywhere near that area. And I attached to, my first roommates, Preston Gothard, who was a Pittsburgh Steeler, by the way.
Yes, that's right.
Oh my gosh, you got to check out that show with Preston. He's funnier than hell. But he kept me, my spirits up with his humor, and because it was a long road to hoe. You got a scholarship right away. It took me 2.5 years before I ever pulled on the jersey for the first time. But you got to start early in your career, man.
Yes.
You started for 3 years, but I think you got to start your freshman year against Tennessee.
Yes, I did. That was
talk about that early rise on the depth chart at Bama.
Yeah, again, I came to contribute, so I came with the right frame of mind. Initially, I signed as a nose tackle, but when I got there were some injuries on the offensive line, and I'd never forget, Coach Fuller pulled me in and said, "Hey, would you be interested in moving over to the offensive line?" I said, "Sure, Coach. I just want to play." So I got a chance to start one game as a true freshman, and then became a starter my sophomore year. So I never looked back to defense. But I came down with a frame of mind that I'm going to do whatever it takes to get on that field. And it worked out.
Wow! Holy cow! All right, talk about was Coach Fuller your position coach? Talk about your position coach. Talk about Coach Curry and some of your teammates that you were buddies that you hung out with. Of course, the offensive line. The offensive line is always close. Anyway.
Oh yeah. That was a special group, special time. I came in. Coach Perkins actually signed me. Actually, it was Coach Henshaw. Gene Henshaw came up and we put ink to paper. And, fortunately, by the time we got to Robert and I got to Alabama, Coach Perkins was on his way down to Tampa. Mm-hmm. So they brought in Coach Curry. So we were getting a chance to meet him. But the group that I came in with was Roger Schultz and Terrell Chapman, Vince Strickland was in that class, Chris Robinette. Charlie Abrams, Lamont Russell. So those were my signing group guys, and we actually ended up becoming the kind of the 5, 6, 7 guys that were the guys. So and we had it was very competitive. We had some guys that were moving around a little bit from offense to defense, but we became a really, really solid group. And, it was great. We had 4 offensive coordinators during that time too. So we're kind of, in a little bit of turmoil.
Wow.
But we still managed to win. We still, made bowl games, played for a national championship, made it to the Sugar Bowl, played against Miami, and we still managed to win. So it was an interesting time, with when Coach Carey came in, because we had to get to know him and he had to get to know us.
Right.
But again, Coach Fuller was always that staple, because like you said, he was a holdover from Coach Perkins.
Yeah.
So we all really gravitated towards him. Plus he was an Alabama guy too. He also played, so we really connected with him. He did a phenomenal job with us and just our development. I owe another grad of thanks to is Coach Homer Smith. He was our offensive coordinator. Phenomenal, brilliant mind. And I love both of those guys. Unfortunately, they're no longer with us. But I owe a lot of who I am to them, because, as we go through life, we pull, certain things, attributes from men that we're around and friends and that. So I owe a lot of who I am to those guys.
Yeah. Oh, good props, man. Good flowers to those guys. Same thing for me with George O'Leary and Coach Bryant. Did Jimmy Fuller ever talk about Coach Bryant?
He did. He did.
Did he?
Yeah.
Did he?
Yeah. He
Wow.
did. Yeah. He would share.
Stories.
He would share the stories. Absolutely. 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 Oh, I tell you what, the connection was good, and a lot of the older guys would come through, like I remember seeing Leroy Jordan. I remember, Kenny Stabler. I remember Joe Namath coming through, and when those older guys would come around and I would watch Coach Fuller and just, the connection with those guys, right? I remember watching Coach Fuller when he looked and saw Leroy Jordan, I thought those guys were going to go at it, just how intense it was just for a hot second, but it was just that love, that they had for each other.
Wow.
And that was part of when I knew that I was in the right spot, because I knew that no matter what, I'm always connected to these Bama guys, these Bama brothers, and it doesn't matter what era, because we're all family. So
we're all Bama brothers, man. We're all Bama brothers
Absolutely.
from another mother, man. Wow.
That's right.
All right. Tell a story about the great Homer Smith, man. He was such an icon, a Hall of Famer, brilliant offensive mind. I never got to know him, but I've read a lot of books, and read a lot of stories on him. But he was just a brilliant offensive mind.
Brilliant.
Talk a little bit about him.
Oh, special. Like I said, he holds a very special spot in my heart. Just to be able to sit in those meetings and just listen to him talk, right? He had his own verbiage, and just his mannerisms, and you could see the passion, in everything that he did, as he taught his offense. And we were so good at it. My junior year, that was a year we were 10-2. My junior year, we could run. We knew his offense forward and backwards, and we were good. We were good during that time, but it was because of him, and just his creativity, and being able to get the most out of us, from Gary Hollingsworth to Saran Stacy to, Lamont Russell, Craig Sanderson, Kevin Turner, right? So we had a solid group, and we knew that offense. We knew that offense from front to back. So,
man, God bless his soul, Kevin Turner, ALS. Kerry Good.
Yeah, KG.
I do a show every Monday night, Trent, with Kerry Good.
Do you?
Oh my gosh, he is so. You got to catch Monday night shows.
Okay.
We've done
Okay.
22 of them, man. He's wisdom filled. KG is so
Oh my
wisdom
goodness.
filled, man.
He
Yeah.
now he really was one guy that took me under his wing when I got to Alabama. I remember
Oh,
going on my visit. I was hanging out with Todd and KG,
yeah.
and during that time he always treated me like a brother, and that was just coming out of high school. So KG's another one that has a very
Yeah.
special spot in my heart. Yeah, he always looked
Yeah.
out for me and
Oh,
made sure that
man.
I was okay. So, yeah.
What a gem, huh? What a gem.
Yes, yes,
You and
absolutely.
KG and Trent Richardson,
Yes.
Todd T Rich, you and
Rich.
Todd and KG hanging out. Oh my gosh. That is so cool. What's some of your biggest I know, it's been so long, but I remember moments, Bama games
Right.
and games, certain games. I don't remember every player in all the games. But what are some of the great moments and memories you got of playing for
Oh my
Bama?
goodness. There's so many. So many. Just from the playing to the training. I know there's one game I believe it was my sophomore year. We lost to Ole Miss. It was on homecoming. And that was probably one of the most embarrassing things we had to endure. Um, so we were all excited, because we knew that following year we are going to get after these guys. So we were
Mhm.
playing them over there. And they got out early on us. And I think it was maybe a kick return or a botched might have been a fumble that they scored on. So anyway, they ended up going up 21-0. So we were like, oh man, this can't be happening to us again.
Right.
So we settled down and we ended up beating them 63, I think 63-21 or 24. But that game was just phenomenal, right? Just phenomenal from the
Everything
standpoint
clicked.
that everything clicked. We rallied. We knew they weren't better than us. They got a couple of breaks and they capitalized on it. But once
Right.
we settled down and we started playing football, we knocked them around pretty good. So that was pretty exciting.
But yeah, it's hard. It's hard when you get transition because I was there for the Coach Bryant, Ray Perkins transition.
Right.
You were there for Coach Bryant or Coach Perkins Curry transition.
Right.
Sometimes the fans, the Alabama fans, are so rabid and so passionate that they don't understand. Like when Coach Bryant stepped down, he knew. He told Coach Mel Moore, and in Mel Moore's book Crimson Heart, he talks about that the Alabama fans wouldn't understand why there's going to be a little bit of dip in production. And he was right. And now the same thing's happening. Trent, we were blessed, to have the two greatest coaches at Bama that ever lived. And I was really blessed to play for one of them. But, what are the odds of that happening at the same school? That we're not going to have three. It's just not, it's impossible. It's not going to happen. So, people have to understand, be patient with him. He's a good coach. But he's not going to win. He's not going to win 5-6 national titles.
Right. That's right.
Oh my gosh! All right. So, how did you and Roger Schultz? How did you and Roger get picked for the Biggest Loser TV show? And what life lesson did that help it carry for millions of people, but help for you in your future?
Well, it was funny because I never followed the show. No, this was this was Roger's thing. It wasn't it was Roger's idea. So this was back in 2007. My wife had just had our first son, Lincoln, and he was born in on June 20th, 2007. So Roger called me shortly after his birth, and I didn't think anything of it because I'd gotten a lot of calls from guys who knew that we were expecting, and I was thinking he was just calling to say congratulations and all of that. So, which he did. He called to say congratulations, but he also had this other idea and wanted to see if I would be interested. So he was telling me about this show called The Biggest Loser. And he said that he had auditioned for it a couple of times before, didn't make the cut. He said they're having a special edition. This was for season 5. And he said that they're doing teammates. You're going on as a couple, parent, mother, daughter, father, son type thing, or teammates, So he said that I want to see if you would audition with me. And I was like, oh, okay, let me check some things out, and more importantly, let me get the blessings from my wife, because if anything were to to happen, she would have to sign off on it. So fortunate for me during that time, there was they were getting ready to air season 4. So they were showing season 1, 2, 3, leading up to season 4. So I got a chance to kind of watch and get the premise of the show. So I was like, this is interesting. They're going to take these people away and they're going to work out and train and, lose some weight. I was like, okay, this would be pretty cool. So I asked my wife, I said, hey, would you be okay if I went and auditioned? Now, this was nothing I ever thought would, become anything, So she said, yeah, go ahead. So the auditions were down in New York City. So I called Raj back and I said, hey, what do I need to do? I'm good to go. I'll come meet you wherever I need to go. I thought I would have to come back to Alabama, come down, the auditions would be there, but they were in New York City. So I drove down to New York City. Roger flew up. We auditioned, and again, I'm not thinking this is going to come anything. I just say, hey, this will be something we'll talk about, how we auditioned for the show and all of that. So we auditioned and we make it to the second round. So I'm like, okay, so yeah, we like you guys, we're going to push you through to the second round. So we said, okay, what do we got to do? Come back to New York City, or, when is that? He said, no, we're going to fly you out to California. I was like, oh, okay, going out to California. Now, I'd never been to California. The closest I had been to Arizona when we went out to play in the Fiesta Bowl. So that's the furthest west that I had gone. So I was like, okay, we'll go. Get a trip to California out of this thing, So they flew us out there. They told us all the things to pack and bring and all of that stuff. And again, not thinking we were gonna make the final cut, but we were out there for like 2 weeks. So just kind of going through the paces, right? Meeting the execs and the folks from the show, and interviewing and doing all that stuff. So they called us it was on a Sunday night. They called us in, all of the folks that they picked. Now, mind you, they were moving us around, and they were shuttling us in these white vans, so you would see just certain people at certain times, but you knew that there were a lot of folks involved, but they had us kind of pegged off. So
in groups, just in small groups.
Right. So you would see certain people a few days, and the next day you wouldn't see them, So then you would see, you might travel 1 or 2 or 3 other folks. Now, we couldn't talk to each other either during that time. Then we say, oh, maybe they got sent home, or maybe, so we ended up getting to that Sunday night, and there were 20 folks that they had called into this meeting room, and folks that we had seen over that 2-week period, and some that we hadn't. And they said, you guys are going to be the cast, for season 5, so we got excited. And, we're hooping, hollering, so they're talking to us a little bit more about the show. So you guys got to pack your bags, have your bags packed by 4 a.m. outside your room, and then be on the buses by 4:30. So we got on the bus, and it was filming from day one, right? Everything was a blur from that point, right? Wow. So it was just phenomenal experience, just being on that side of it. Now, you watch the show and see all of that, but being on the other side, seeing the production of it and all the things that don't make, that didn't make the show. Said, I'm watching the show, I'm like, oh, I remember this was going on at that time, but obviously fit all that into an episode, so just being able to experience that was cool.
How long did it take, and did you guys win it? I can't remember. Well,
Roger was really, really close. Yeah, Roger's really close. I was on for 8 weeks. Ended up getting voted off. I had also suffered a knee injury too, so I tore my meniscus. So
Oh,
that was
did you?
causing me a lot of pain. Yeah,
Oh my
but
God.
but Roger went right down to the wire. Yeah, he went right down to the wire with
Wow.
it. So
Wow.
it
That
was,
what an experience, man. That's
yeah, yeah.
awesome.
And it was cool because it gave us an opportunity to kind of rekindle our relationship too, going through something
Right.
like that, and then understanding just working out. The biggest thing for us was we were just so caught up in life. We're working, we got family, we're
Right.
just trying to,
Right.
make a living so we can, take care of and then will become the last people on the totem pole,
Yeah, that
so.
you take care of, right? You're taking
Right,
care of yourself
absolutely.
last, taking care of everybody else.
Yes.
You lost 130 pounds, something like that?
Yes. Yeah, actually
Wow.
141, at
Wow.
that time. Yeah, yeah.
Holy cow. All right. So now let's talk about what you're doing now. You're living in Binghamton, New York.
Yeah.
Are you coaching, training? Do you host Wellness Training Academy? And talk about the book that you wrote with world strongman champ Bill Clark. Talk about
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Yeah, I ended up in the Binghamton area because there were two players here from that played with me at Alabama. So Ray Stanton, who was a quarterback, and then Mike Ramil, who was a defensive tackle.
Mhm.
So I hosted Ray when he came down to visit, and he ended up signing. So we became really close friends. So we would drive back and forth to Tuscaloosa together.
Wow.
So so we were at Alabama, and then Ramil transferred in. Ramil ended up marrying Ray's sister, who also came to Alabama when Ray was there. So
Uh,
so they all ended up here in Binghamton.
mhm.
So they started a semi-pro football team back, and they came up to Syracuse to get me and say, "Hey, do you want to come down and play with us?" I was like, "Sure, I'll come down and play." Ended up liking the area, so ended up staying.
Yeah.
So I've been here it's about 25 years now,
Oh,
in the
wow.
Binghamton area. I work at a school just outside of Binghamton called Shenango Valley School Districts.
Yeah.
So I'm one of the security coordinators there. So I've been there just about 20, I'm in my 24th year there,
Wow.
at that school. So I do that during the day. I have been on and on coaching football there, but I also have a training business where I do more strength and conditioning things.
Okay.
So I have a football academy, PCU football academy, where that's all about developing players and
Wow.
teaching more of the nuances of how to play their position.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
I have,
position teaching and expert
yeah,
strength and conditioning. Because Trent,
absolutely.
I see that even down here in Florida, which is a hotbed, right, for talent. But even the
Right.
high school coaches, and I coached for 20 years, and when I first got into coaching, I realized because I had Hall of Fame strength coaches, Al
Yep.
Miller and Kent Johnston, I
Yes.
realized that I would have never played at Alabama if it wasn't for my strength coaches. So I knew
Yes.
the importance of it. So I went and got certified, CSCS certified,
Yep.
which, by the
Yep.
way, was the hardest dang test.
Uh-huh.
harder than Trent, it was harder than any business course that I ever took
Yes.
in Alabama.
Yes.
So I passed that and became a certified strength coach. But I
Mhm.
came to realize that high school coaches are great at what they do. They're
Right.
professional teachers. They know their sport, their X's and O's, but
Right.
they don't know diddly about strength and conditioning.
Exactly.
And they think they do. You have to get
That's
over that
right.
ego. But
Yep.
and
Absolutely.
that's why you running your business and I ran a business for years and conditioning
Yep.
business.
And that was the exact reason why I started it is because I wanted to teach kids at a younger age the things that I had learned, because I was on the tail end of Coach Johnson and them, but I had
Mhm.
Coach Rich Wingo, so
Right.
he was our head strength coach along with Rocky Colburn and
Yeah,
Terry
Rocky.
Jones. Yep, yep. And Byron Bragg was there for a short time, so I got a chance to learn a lot from those guys. And then LeBaron Brothers came on when they brought in. Well, actually, I graduated with Coach Stallings, so He came in with Coach Stallings. So that was another reason why I started doing what I do, because in my mind, I was like, man, it would be really cool to have started learning this stuff in the 7th grade, when I really wanted to pursue football. And having, just the kind of that inside understanding of how to do cleans and snatches, because when I got my workout from Alabama, I got the packet and it had cleans and snatches, and I didn't know how to do them. The only thing I knew about a clean was watching the Wide World of Sports, right? seeing them do those exercises, but there was nobody at Henniger that could teach me how to execute them. Like the bench and the squat. I did those things, but that was the most common. But I was like, man, this would be really cool to take this stuff and start, package it so the kids can really start to grow with it. So
Absolutely.
That was the main motivation for that.
Yeah. Oh, good for you, man. Good for you. Passing it on, man. Passing your knowledge on to the others. Rocky Colburn was a DB with me.
With you, right?
With me. Yep. Rocky Colburn was DB, and I had to hit him in practice. Now, Trent, he ain't very big, right? He was 165 pounds, but he hit you like he's 210.
Yes.
And he hit so much that Coach Bryant loved him, man. Coach Bryant loved Rocky. And Rocky wouldn't say shit if he had a mouthful.
That's right.
He's to this day, I can't get him on the show because he doesn't talk. But man, he was smart. He was smart. He was tough. Bill Curry. Did Coach Curry ever talk about Vince Lombardi because he played for him?
Yes, he did. Yeah,
he wrote a book, 10 Men in the Huddle, and I haven't got it yet. I want to read it. Have you read that book by any chance?
I have not. But yeah, he was another phenomenal coach to have been able to learn from. He was tough. He understood it. He was a sinner. So he understood the old line. In that. And again, very fortunate to have had an opportunity to play. While he was here and to learn from him. As well. So
yeah, he's a good man. He's a good spiritual guy. I played for him in the Blue-Gray All-Star game in 1984. So I got to know him. I'll tell you a funny story of that game. Doesn't have anything to do with it, but it's just a funny story. We were Bill Curry and Ray Perkins and Coach Frank Howard were standing in that during practice for the Blue-Gray game. They were standing behind the secondary because, that's where a lot of the coaches stood to see the play unfold, right? Well, I was covering in the slot, man-to-man, a guy named Jerry Rice. Okay, so I'm one-on-one with Jerry Rice in the slot, and but in the All-Star games, you can only play like 2 coverages, either man or cover 3 or something, right? So it's man-to-man with Jerry. And he comes and he stems me and does a post right down the middle of the field, right? So him and I are hauling ass down the field, and we look back for the ball, right? We both look back for the ball, and as soon as we look back for the ball, boom, we run right into old Coach Frank Howard.
Oh my!
Oh yeah! Full speed, Trent. Perk sidestepped it and got out of the way. Bill Curry sidestepped it and got out of our way. But old Coach Frank Howard was older and wasn't as quick, right? So I took Coach's right shoulder, and Jerry took his other shoulder, and we flipped him. We hit him so hard. Yeah, we flipped him, and he landed on his back. And he was laying on his back with his mouth open and his eyes open, not breathing.
Oh my!
Yeah. So So Jerry Rice and I are calling over the trainers. Hey, come help coach! Come help coach! Before the trainers could get over there, Perk runs over, kneels down, sticks his hand in his mouth, and pulls out a big old chaw of tobacco. He was choking on a chaw.
Really? Oh my goodness!
They had to call the ambulance. Take him away.
Oh,
I'll
wow.
never forget that. Jerry and I bet
Oh,
Jerry Rice remembers that to this day, man.
I'm sure.
We almost killed old Coach Frank Howard in practice.
Wow.
But
Oh,
man,
wow.
I'm so proud of you, Trent, man. Things you've done. God, how many do you have? One boy, or do you have other children?
Two sons. I have two
Two sons?
sons. Yeah. Lincoln,
Good.
Lincoln and Mackenzie. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So Lincoln's a senior. Yeah, he's a senior in high school. He'll be graduating and attending the Binghamton University. So he's going to get an opportunity to compete in track and field there. And then my youngest, Mac, he is a sophomore. Yeah, so he'll have a couple more years here before he heads out.
Awesome, man. So proud of you, brother. Thanks for doing this, man. It was so much fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll have to do it again soon. And
good.
shout out to our Tide and Joe Riccardi and Rico. Yeah.
Yes, Big Joe.
Thank you, brother. Thanks,
hey,
Trent.
I appreciate you. Love you, brother.
Oh, I got one more question before I let you go. And I got this from Timmy Green, my high school teammate. God, he got ALS too, right?
Yes.
How many of our teammates got ALS? It's just crazy. But
It
Timmy on his podcast, his son Troy moderates it, does a good job.
Oh, wow.
But he always asks his guests, who would be a good guest to have on the show? So I'm going to ask you, Trent, who should I get on the show?
Oh my goodness. Have you had Roger Schultz on yet?
No, I haven't. No, I knew you were going to say that. I'm glad you did. Because that boy can talk, and he'd be great to have on the show.
Oh, he'll be phenomenal.
Send me his number. Yes. Thank you, brother.
Yes, you got it.
Love you, man.
Love you too. Take care. Yes, sir. Take care.
Man, Trent Patterson, unbelievable. The link from Syracuse to Bama, it was a beautiful one. Short-lived. I wish it would continue, but man, the memories that we had. I want to thank him. Thank everybody for watching the show. Have a great sports weekend. Stay tuned for these great messages. If you like the podcast, share it on YouTube channel. Subscribe. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great sports weekend. See you soon.
There's a reason why Hill Kelly in Pensacola is the #1 selling Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram dealer between Jacksonville and New Orleans. While other dealers have taken advantage of a competitive market with higher prices, Hill Kelly has discounted prices to the lowest of the year. And Hill Kelly in Pensacola won't surprise you with excessive charges beyond the selling price. Come see why people from Milton, Pace, Foley, Bay Minette, Daphne, Gulf Shores, Mobile, and beyond are driving to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to buy their next new Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram. At Hill Kelly, the bottom line price and your satisfaction are what really matter. So before you sign, check the bottom line and make the trip to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to see what true local ownership can do for you. At Hill Kelly Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Highway 29 in Car City, Pensacola. Or shop online 24/7 at hillkellydodge.com. When it comes to bottom line pricing, nobody beats a Hill Kelly deal. Nobody.
That's you trying to fix the plumbing yourself to save a few bucks. Doing things yourself doesn't always end well. The same goes for insurance. That's why Auto Owners works with local independent agents who tailor coverage to meet your needs and offer discounts for life, home, car, and business insurance. Because sometimes you need a professional to get the job done right. That's simple human sense.
75 years of service in high tech today. It's Pensacola Glass Company at 433-8348. High tech is a term often applied to advanced services and products in today's marketplace. And today, glass is much more than the simple painted brittle, see-through stuff we hit baseballs through when we were kids. Glass is now a product with unique flexibility in both performance and application. And Pensacola Glass Company is growing right along. That's Pensacola Glass Company at 433-8348.
Are you riding around in a filthy vehicle? Dirty car no more. Visit Ronnie's Car Wash today to get it shining in no time. They have 3 convenient locations with another coming soon. The unlimited monthly wash packages start as low as $14.95 per month with free vacuums, multi-purpose spray and towels. Visit them in Gulf Breeze, Navarre, Fort Walton, and soon Crestview. Don't wait. Wash today. Be sure to see Ronnie's Car Wash on Facebook to see the latest specials and discounts. You'll be riding and shining in no time.